How's it going, guys? Marine King here with the pre-review of the Grand Tournament. This is part one. Today we're going to cover the Druid and Hunter cards. I want to go ahead and run through these cards relatively quickly and not really ramble on too long. You can get a quick view if you don't want to watch this whole video of the ratings out of 10 score at the description bottom of this video. All right, so let's start right in. First, Druid cards. The 1 mana Living Root spell, deal 2 damage or summon 2 1/1 saplings. Well, you know what? I got to tell you, this is a small card that does very little, but all in all, I would say this is one of the most exciting cards for Druid, and actually, even though it's very small, I think this is one of the best cards in all of Grand Tournament. The versatility of this card is very, very nice, but each effect that you can choose from, either one, is a solid value in and of itself. I mean, this card is absolutely great for Druids because the thing that Druid has already been missing for a while now is spot removal. It's very difficult for Druids to do spot removal. Right now, the only thing that we really have that is viable is basically Wrath. So everything about removing early game minions has been Wrath, 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 Wrath. And that's created a huge problem against aggro decks, decks like Face Hunter, decks like Shot Dyl, and I think that this is a really strong answer to that because of the fact that it can be a removal on turn 1, but it can also be proactive because let's say theoretically you're against the Face Hunter, and he plays, he coins out. Let's say he plays something on turn 1, okay? You can use this right away to remove it. Whatever he plays on turn 1, you can use this to remove it. Or, let's say you're the first player and you go before the Hunter. Well, then you can put 2 1/1 saplings out there, and chances are that's going to remove whatever he plays. In fact, that might even remove 2 of the first things that he plays, and it's really going to win you the game right there. But besides that, let's say you're not facing against an aggro deck. You know what? Generating 2 1/1 saplings is really great because most control decks, they just want to control the whole board and remove everything. Now they're going to have to waste a lot of effort attacking these 2 1/1 saplings. It's really difficult for them to decide. Zulok, for instance, they just hate stuff like this, and it's really great. But besides all that, let's also look at the fact that you can deal 2 damage to any target. You can deal 2 damage even to your opponent's face when you need it. So this is just really a great card, very versatile. I give it a thumbs up. It's definitely a winner. That is a 9 out of 10 card. The 4 mana Astral Communion, gain 10 mana crystals, discard your hand. Well, I gotta tell you, to be honest, I'm really not. It's a really wacky card. It's very gimmicky, and I'm really not that excited about this card. And here's why: because the potential for this card seems like really game breaking. Like, oh yeah, I could get 10 mana and then play Deathwing and play this really high mana cost stuff like Kel'Thuzad, Ragnaros, Sarah, etc. But the fact of the matter is, the problem is that if you were going to build a deck around this type of card and load your deck with super high cost cards and play this with the intent of doing that, you would want to do it right away, right off the bat, because that's when you would get a lot of value out of those cards and make devastating, scary plays for the enemy. This would mean you could not use this card anyway until turn 4. And then once you did, now it's turn 5 before you could actually play it. Well, most druids, to be honest, could already start playing something pretty high at turn 5, especially by the time you look at cards like Innervate, Wild Growth, etc. Already, that's too late in the game for this type of thing. By that time, the enemy has too many cards in their hand. They probably have a removal for anything that you top deck afterwards. So let's say you played this and then top decked a really large minions start coming in. It's probably really not going to work out for you. You know, the only way this card really would be good is if you happen to have the dream, which is that you use this card, discard your hand, on the very next thing you draw into a Nourish and draw 3 more cards. But even that's really being, even if you could do that, you'd be turn 7 before you can actually start using that stuff. You're already pretty close to 10 mana by then. I just don't think that this card is worth it. And I think that people are going to certainly give this a try and realize that discarding your whole hand and going into top deck mode at turn 4 onward is not really a great trade-off. So, you know, I think that it's really not that great of a card. I would give this a 4 out of 10. The 4 mana Savage Combatant. The Beast, that's 5/4 and gives your hero +2 attack with an Inspire. Well, a lot of people seem to really like this card, and they just really think that this card and cards like this are going to make Beast Druid a thing. I still have my doubts about whether or not Beast Druid is really going to become a thing. But if Beast Druid does become very popular, to be honest, I really don't think that this card is going to be one of the reasons for that, because 4 mana 5/4 is not at all good stats. It's not even fair stats. I would say it's below average stats. So these are mediocre stats here. You don't want to have 4 HP at 4 mana unless the thing that you're playing does something on the same turn that it's played. So if you were to play something like a Gnomish Inventor, for instance, you draw a card as soon as you play it. Or let's say, here's a better example, okay, because this is also 4 mana 5/4. Goblin Blast Mage, okay? Why is Goblin Blast Mage good, but this card is not so good? Because Goblin Blast Mage does something the same turn that is played without needing to use extra mana. This, by all rights, is worthless unless you happen to play it also with 2 more extra mana. So then you could actually take advantage of having a 3 damage hero power. But most people probably won't be playing this on turn 6 to get the hero power out of it. They'll probably want to play this at turn 4 or turn 5. And it's going to die most of the time before you could ever get your hero power off. So it's just not that exciting to me. A lot of other people seem to feel this card is going to be great, but personally, I don't really see that much potential because of the fact that I don't think there's going to be too many times that you're going to be able to play this card and do a hero power unless you're going into turn 6. And at turn 6, with 6 mana, you could be playing other cards and you could be doing other things like Emperor Thracian, Sylvanas Windrunner. You know, there's some competitive things you might want to do for 6 mana. So it's hard for me to imagine that this, I just don't think so. I would give this a 5 out of 10. I'd say it's meh. Mulch. 3 mana, destroy a minion, add a random minion to your opponent's hand. Where I take issue with this card is that what is the advantage in running this type of card versus running Big Game Hunter? If you are going to use a card with a drawback this serious, it is fair to say that you're using this against a very serious threat. Probably a bigger minion, probably the chances are fairly high that they'll have 7 or more attack. And at that point, I feel that since most Druids already run Big Game Hunter, and I don't think they're going to stop running Big Game Hunter, I think Big Game Hunter is the much better alternative to Mulch. Now, yes, there's a chance that the enemy won't play something that is high damage, but is a big threat. In that particular case, you probably would fare better to just trade with it with whatever you already have, or use cards like Wrath to chip away at it, or do other things to deal with it. I don't think that Mulch is really a great answer for the same reason that Naturalize is not a great answer, because you kill something, but then you get this tremendous drawback. This is a very serious drawback. Add a random minion to your opponent's hand. That's a very serious drawback, especially since they could get any minion. It's like giving them an unstable portal. It's just really bad, and because of that, I think the card is mediocre, and I don't think a lot of people are going to want to use this card. I know I won't, and I don't think a lot of other people are going to run it either. So I'd give this a 4 out of 10 score. Up next is the Knight of the Wild. 7 mana. Whenever you summon a beast, reduce the cost of this card by 1. Well, if Beast Druid is what you're running, if you are running a Beast Druid deck, this is a good card to have in your deck. The reason why is because this becomes a really great value if you play 3 beasts, because that's the amount of beasts you need to play for this to become a great card. At 2 beasts, which is now making this a 5 mana card, 5 mana 6/6 is okay. It's not great. It's just okay. To not have any effect to go with it, no taunt, nothing. It's just okay. But at 4 mana, this becomes really great. So if you commit to really running a lot of beasts, especially inexpensive ones like Hunted Creepers, the beast card that can be the 2/5 or the 5/2, etc. This will be a pretty decently solid card to add into your deck. It's not the worst, but by the same token, again, you'd have to actually run Beast in your Druid deck, and at this moment, I don't see a whole lot of reasons why Druids would want to run Beast in their decks. I don't think that the synergies that I've seen out of the entire Grand Tournament, I don't see enough reason to really make Druids want to deviate from what's currently popular to run Beast. So therefore, I would say that this card won't have a whole lot of viability until there are more reasons to play a lot of Beast in a Druid deck. Therefore, I give it a 6 out of 10. Darnassus Aspirant, the 2 mana 2/3 Battlecry, gain an empty mana crystal, Death Rattle, destroy a mana crystal. Well, I must say, I really like this card. I think it's a lot better than a lot of people gave it credit for. When this card was revealed, it kind of had a mixed reception. A lot of people go, it's okay, it's not really that great. Well, I think it's quite great, and let me tell you why. The reason I think this card is going to be really good is because a lot of people are saying, okay, that, but it's nothing but a Blue Gale Murloc, or it can be a Gelbin Stalker. What's the big deal? Well, the big deal here is that this card actually, in my opinion, was not really made for your standard Druid deck. This card was designed, in my opinion, for a way to stop aggro decks. I believe that this was built for real Druid control decks, Druid decks that run expensive cards, Druid decks that run high-priced taunts, because this card, in many ways, has the same effect as taunt. If you play this, for instance, against a face hunter, now you've put them in a position where now they're going to want to kill this. And here's the best part. It's like a taunt that they can't silence or don't want to silence. They wouldn't want to silence this card with a Ironbeak Owl, for instance, but they're not going to want to let it live either, because through this card, now you can play things like swipe right away on the very next turn, or you can get in, play something like Singe and Shieldmaster. Now you can play the more expensive taunts. Now you have this mana, which is really going to hurt aggro decks. So, you know, aggro decks will suffer against this card. And the best part about it is they can't get away from it by silencing it the way they could normally. And I think that's what a lot of people might be overlooking, is that when you play this card, you definitely want to kill the opponent, definitely wants to kill it, but it may not be that easy for them if their agenda is to deal all this damage to your face as soon as possible. This is going to make Hunters cry, this is going to make Shakadins cry, and this is going to make any other aggro decks that surface cry. And might I say, this is also going to make Freeze Mages cry. I give this card a solid 7 out of 10. Windwalker. The 4 mana 4/4, give a friendly beast 3+ health. Well, when I look at this card, what I get out of this is that this is a weaker version of the Priest Repair Bot, Upgrade Repair Bot. This card, I would have been very excited about this card for what it does. 4/4 for 4 mana is not really good stats, but giving a friendly beast 3+ health, that's really nice. But here's the problem. Here's where I take issue with this card. The reason that Upgrade Repair Bot is good in a Priest mech deck is because the Repair Bot itself is a mech. And that's very important. Windwalker is not a beast, and that is what hurts this card. If you're running this card in a beast-themed deck, you want beast minions. You don't want minions that aren't beast. So this card doesn't fully synergize with beast as much as you would like it to, which is the same problem that the Knight of the Wild had, which is that it also wasn't a beast card. Well, that makes this a little less appetizing to me, and now it makes it from like an auto-include in beast decks to just like, maybe I'll run it, maybe I won't. I think that this card will see very limited play for that reason. 4/4 stats plus 3 health with no beast tag, that just makes the card a little bit not that appetizing. So therefore, it's not the worst, but it's not the best. I give it a 6 out of 10 rating. Up next is the Druid of Saber. Druid of the Saber, 2 mana, 2/1. Choose 1, charge, or 1/1 and stealth. This card is really nice. I definitely like this card a lot, and it is... I meant to say a couple of cards back when I mentioned you have a choice between making a Gelbin or a Bluegill. I'm sorry, my brain was mixed up. I actually was talking about this card, obviously. Druid of the Saber, a lot of people weren't that excited about this card because they go, well, you know, why do I need stealth or just to make it a Bluegill Murloc? You know, what's the big deal about that? Okay, this card is super great in a certain particular type of deck, and I'm going to tell you what that type of deck is right now. This card is really great in a aggro Druid deck, and that's what a lot of people aren't realizing about this card. This card is fantastic in a aggro Druid deck. Now, most people have never even seen an aggro Druid deck, so I invite you to please look up the deck called Facebook, which is a deck that I designed. But actually, I didn't really design it. A friend of mine designed it, but I published the deck and wrote the guide for it. It is an aggro Druid deck, and what this deck does is it focuses on playing charge minions or playing minions that you can set up for the combo wombo. And that's what this card is all about. This card gives you a chance to do maximum damage to your enemy by deciding, looking at what's in your hand, and then you know if you have things like Abusive Sergeant, if you have things like Savage Roar, etc. It's really going to make this card super awesome because you can set it into stealth mode, or if you don't have those cards in your hand, then you can just set it into charge mode, and this card is really super great for a Druid aggressive deck, very specifically. So in that respect, I give this card a 7 out of 10. If you're running a Druid aggro deck to the face, this card, 2 of these will be an auto include. You'll love it. Okay, legendary of the group, Aviana. The 9 mana 5/5, your minions cost 1. This card is okay. It's not super great, but it's not as bad as some people are making it out to be. It certainly is a far cry from that juggernaut of a card variant called Variant for the Warrior. This is no variant, but this card has its own use too. Very specifically, the ideal behind this card is that you're going to hold taunts in your hand. You're going to run specifically Ancients of War. And when you play this card, you'll probably be maybe defending your face at this point. And what you're going to do is you're going to play this card, and then you're going to use either an extra mana crystal or a coin or an innervate, and you're going to play a couple of taunts. And what that's going to do is set you up to either win the game, or the enemy is going to have some spell straight to your face. But if not, you'll probably win the game instantly with this card if you can manage to draw this and still have an extra couple of crystals. You can get them from somewhere, and you haven't died by that point. The other thing about this card is that it will allow you to this card is going to allow you to run spells in your deck that you could not run before, like Healing Touch, because now you can finally play a large minion and still have the mana left over to do something like Healing Touch, and still have the mana left over to use something like Starfall, and still have the mana left over to play cards that you could not really play before. So this card has some strong potentials. I like it. It's not the greatest because the stats are 5/5 for 9 mana. That obviously is almost nothing. But the fact that you can play multiple taunts in the same turn with this, if you happen to save something like Innervate, it's really great. It'll save your ass against the most aggro decks. It'll save your ass against Zoo. It's going to be really nice when you use it and you have really expensive taunts in your hand. I give this a 7 out of 10. Overall, I would say that the Druid cards, most of them I was not excited for, but the few that were good were really good ones. So the Living Roots, the Aspirant, Druid of the Saber, Aviana, these cards are all, with the exception of the Roots, these cards are all finely niched into very particular decks, and I think that you will like them in those particular decks. So moving into the Hunter cards. King's Elekk. 2 mana, Battlecry, reveal a minion in each deck. If yours costs more, draw it. 2, 3. This card is okay, but I'm not that crazy about it, and here's why. The problem I have with this card, okay, are two things. Number one is that this minion isn't a beast, and that's going to hurt you because Hunter really relies a lot on having their minions be beast. And when they're not beast, there has to be a fantastic reason for it. Has to synergize with Hunter in some other way, like Mad Scientist. It's worth it because it synergizes nicely with the traps. But basically, you need to have Beast Tag on your minions, so really it's going to hurt you a lot. The other place that I take issue with this card is that this is a card that is encouraging Control Hunter. This card is encouraging that you will put control-based minions in your Hunter deck. Okay. Because it's jousting. Here's the problem with that. The good thing about Hunter in general is that the minions are low cost. So you get a lot of bang for your buck. That is going to hurt you, though, with this Battlecry because of the fact that the Hunter cards are so efficient. Like, for instance, in a Hunter control deck, you're probably going to run Web Spinners, Haunted Creepers. You'll want to run Shredders. You'll want to run probably Hound Masters. And one of your highest cost things is probably going to be a couple of high mains. The chances are extremely high that you'll lose that duel. So that's not good. Because if you lose your duel, you just played a 3-2 that's naked and has no tag on it. That's not good enough. And I think that people will desperately try to make this card work. And they will find that in most cases it will not draw a card. And then it'll just be played as a naked 3-2. And I don't think they're really going to be crazy about it. And therefore I give the card a 5 out of 10. Stablemaster, 3 mana, 4/2. Give a friendly beast immune this turn. I think that this is like a weaker version of the Argent Protector. It's not that great. And the reason it's not that great is because Hunters, they rarely have a problem with trading whatever beast they have into whatever you have. That's part of what makes Hunter good, is that their minions are really efficient at trading, and usually this isn't one of those cases where you need to give immunity to a beast, because most of your beasts are either going to win that trade or they have some fantastic death rattle, like like Sylvanas High Main, or even something like they play like a lot of like Haunted Creeper, Web Spinners, etc. There's just not enough reason that you would want this particular card text. And then the stats are just pretty bad for a 3 mana. I mean, 4/2, not that great. And then the other problem is that unlike the Argent Protector, which can give Divine Shield to anything, this can only give immunity to a beast. So one of the cards that you would very commonly want to use this on is a Houndmaster, for instance, and you won't be able to. So that's going to hurt you. And then if you are playing a control deck, which is what this card is geared towards, and you try to run things like King's Elekk, well, King's Elekk isn't a beast, so again, you're going to struggle with this card, and then you can't give immunity to a Mad Scientist. So, there are problems. And based upon that, I give the card 5 out of 10. I think that it's a very meh. 2 mana secret, Bear Trap. After your hero's attack summon a 3/3 bear with taunt. This little tidbit here is, this one word is why I don't really care too much for this card. after your hero's attack. See, your hero gets attacked, and then this happens. This trap specifically was meant to save your ass against aggro decks. So this is, again, encouraging a control-based hunter. And then they're saying, oh, you know, you get attacked in the face, you're going to get this 3/3 bear with taunt. Well, that'd be great if the taunt came out before your face got attacked. But it's coming out afterward, and that is going to cause you to die a lot of times when you needed this to happen. The other problem with this is that after they attack your face, and then this bear with taunt comes out, it's really not that hard for the enemy to deal with, because 3 HP taunt is not difficult at all for an aggro deck to get through. Maybe in this one case, it would have been even better if it were a silverback, because you would really like to have 4. And that's because Abusive Sergeant is really popular in most aggro decks, and you're just going to get blasted apart using this. It's not great. In almost all cases, you would rather have, against an aggro deck, you'd rather run Explosive Trap or Freezing Trap. Now, against other matchups that aren't aggro, like mid-range and control decks, you don't really care about this, because the enemy's rarely going to be attacking your face. Against those type of decks, it's a battle for board control. And again, you would much, much, much rather have something like Snake Trap or Freezing Trap. Again, this would just be inferior in that kind of matchup, because it's rarely a battle for face damage. You might go a lot of turns before they even hit your face in a control versus control matchup. So again, this isn't really the best thing. You know, there is some potential for synergy if you're running a Death Rattle control deck, and you can use you run 2 of these, and then you use Feign Death on your Mad Scientist. This could be something, but aside from that, I don't think that this card stands up very well to the other traps, and therefore I don't think a lot of people are going to be that excited to run it. I would rate this card as a 4 out of 10. Brave Hunter. Well, hello, character from the Disney movie, Pixar movie Brave. For those who didn't catch that, that's the girl with her bow and the red hair. 1 mana, 2/1, Brave Hunter. Inspire. If your hand is empty, deal 2 damage to the enemy hero. Well, this card would be really great if it didn't come with this very specific thing here. If your hand is empty, well, now you have negative synergy with a lot of other cards that you would like to run in an aggro hunter deck. This card is not good. It's only good, first of all, in an aggro face hunter deck, but it's not good because if you were going to run this card, you'd rather just run a couple of quick shots. You don't want to have to play this and then hit your hero power too, and then also have the very specific condition of having your hand empty. That means that now you have to play a card and then play this and hope that you still have mana left over to also use your hero power. That's asking quite a bit. I don't think that it's going to work out that well. And then if you play this early, it's absolutely unacceptable because you don't want to play this early and then sack your tempo just to use the hero power. It just does not really have a strong place in any kind of hunter deck. It's too awkward. The condition and that card text combined, it's just too awkward to get a great value out of this very often. So I would give this deck a 3 out of 10. 5 mana Wrangler. 3/3 Battlecry if you have a minion summon a random beast. This card is going to be quite exciting, and the reason why is because if you just look at the stats as a 3/3, and let's assume the average beast that you summon, the average would be about 7 points of stats. It wouldn't be unreasonable to assume something like a 3-4 or even 3-3, 5-4. Those are pretty middle ground, okay? So let's assume that you would be getting like 6, 7, 8, 9 worth of stats combined, split between 2 bodies, which is good. You do want your stats split between multiple bodies for removal reasons. This card is going to have a great value. Even, let's say you get really unlucky. Okay, let's say you get unlucky with this card. Worst case scenarios. Let's say you play this card and you summon up a Bloodfin Raptor. Okay, well, you're still getting 6, 7, 8 stats worth of 7, 8, 9, 10 worth of stats. That's a pretty decent amount of stats for 5 mana. I mean, you really can't complain too much about that. This card is basically going to be a win-win situation unless you just happen to draw a captain's parrot. And then there's a chance you could play something absolutely amazing like Gazrilla or King Crush. It's going to be pretty nice, actually. And this Battlecry is not that hard to take advantage of. The reason why is because, first of all, you can do sticky setup with something like Hunted Creepers on the turn before. But the other reason why is because you can always just play it on turn 6 with a web spinner in front of it. And it's going to work out really nicely. I think the Battlecry is fairly easy to take advantage of. I like this card. I think it's got a great place in mid-range / control decks. I give this 7 out of 10. I think that you're really going to enjoy this card, and I think it's being severely underlooked and underrated right now. I think this card is going to really have a lot of popularity once people experiment with it and realize how good it is. So I would definitely say keep an eye out for that. Again, 7 out of 10. Ball of Spiders. Summon 3/1/1 web spinners for 6 mana. Well, hey, you know what? This would be really great in a fatigue war type of situation or a top deck mode type of situation. But I think that's rarely going to happen with a Control Hunter deck, and this only has a place in Control Hunter deck. And even if you were playing a Control Hunter deck and you were in that type of situation, you probably would not want to play something this slow at that mana cost. It's too slow for the mana cost. I mean, frankly, it's just too slow. I mean, sure, the long-term potential of a possible fatigue war blowout, this would be, the god draw, but most of the time, you are not going to want 3/3 on the field for 6 mana, and then it's going to be a couple of turns before you can get any value out of killing those spiders and then playing the thing from those spiders and then being able to attack with whatever it is you played. No, it's way too slow, and it's quite frankly just overcosted for what you're getting. I mean, I think at max this card should cost 5 mana. 6, just no way, Jose. I would definitely give this a 4 out of 10. I do not believe that this card will see much play. I think people will experiment with it, quickly become disappointed with their win rates, and give it up. Lock and Load. Okay. This card, I severely disagree with the general opinion on this card. The general opinion on this card when it was first released and onwards that it's absolutely crazy. It's going to win games. Why was Hunter given such a crazy OP card? How fantastic. 2 mana, Lock and Load. Each time you cast a spell this turn, add a random Hunter card to your hand. Well, hey, that sounds amazing. Play this card, and you're just going to refill your whole hand I don't think so. Why? Because this card has a very specific condition, which is that you're going to stockpile a bunch of spells in your hand and then waste 2 mana to use those spells too. How many spells can you really cast in a turn behind this card? Realistically, 1, maybe 2. You're not going to play 3 spells with this. I mean, really, you're not going to be able to just stockpile a bunch of spells and then use them all at once unless you were already winning that game. I mean, if it's any kind of competitive back and forth game at all, you're not going to be able to just hold a bunch of spells in your hand and then play this and get a whole bunch of card draws, and then you don't even know what those cards are going to be. They could be absolutely crap cards. They could be cards that don't synergize with anything you're doing. They could be the King of Beasts. They could be Bestial Wrath. They could be anything. They could be Gladiator's Longbow. I think this card, I think the ideal is interesting, but I think the actual execution behind this card for this class, I don't think this card is very good at all. Most people are saying this is an amazing card. I'm telling you that in my opinion, it's a 2 out of 10. I mean, I could be wrong, but I really don't think so. I'd say this is one of the worst cards that it is actually one of the worst cards of the Hunter set reveal. I would say 2 out of 10. I don't think this card is viable at all, and I think a lot of people are going to try to use this card, and I think they're going to realize that it's not that easy and that it's not that great of a thing to do, to stockpile spells, to use this card to play all the spells. It's awkward and it's dumb, and I don't think that's going to work out very well at all. Next up, the 3 mana spell Powershot. Deal 2 damage to minion and the minions next to it. Hey, you know what? This card, this would have been amazing back in the old days with the old-fashioned Zoologs, and back when people used to, flood their boards with things like Murlocs and 2 HP creatures that didn't have Death Rattle, etc. But let's face it, this is season 17 onward now. I mean, really, who's playing a lot of things that you would get tremendous value out of this? And then the other problem with this is that you give the enemy, now they can play around it quite easily, the same way that they would play around Betrayal from a rogue. I mean, knowing that you have to attack the middle minion means that they can shuffle the board up in a way that you don't get a great usage out of this. It's not that great to deal 2 damage. It's just not good right now. I mean, not anymore. There was a time long ago, but now it's not. To deal 2 damage to 3 targets and then you pretty much are guaranteed to have to use it on the middle target. It's just not that great. It's not the worst, but it's not the best either. I mean, a long time ago, this would have been like a 9 out of 10 card, but today, 6 out of 10 at best. And I'm being gracious with that score. But it's nice to see that, again, they're pushing Control Hunter. But I think that if you try to use this card, you're going to find that it almost removes a lot of things, but still kind of leaves all this stuff there. And after a while, you're going to realize, like, wow, why did I pay 3 mana for that? Dreadscale. The 3 mana 4/2. At the end of your turn, deal 1 damage to all other minions. Well, Dreadscale is dreadful. A dreadful card. Because the stats are not good and the ability is not good. Why isn't it good? Because it deals damage to all other minions. So right away, let me tell you what this card was made for. This card was made specifically for 2 things. It was made specifically for Hunter's Mark, and it was made specifically to synergize with Acidmaw, the other legendary. It's just not that great of a card though by itself. And let's be honest, Hunter's Mark already is pretty easy to use. Like, you could already easily use it through cards like Unleash the Hound, you know, Haunted Creepers. There's so many setups you can do with, you know, Hunter's Mark that you don't need to set it up with Dreadscale. And that's really the only way you'll ever use that's the only way you'll ever get value really from Dreadscale, is to use it with a Hunter's Mark. You're never going to get value with it with Acidmaw because you're never going to play Acidmaw, and I'm going to tell you why on the next, when we flip the card. This card is not good. It is disappointing as a legendary, and I would rate it as a 4 out of 10. I don't think you're going to see much play from this. Acidmaw. Now this is the card you'll probably never see played unless it came out of a Sneeds, or unless it came out of Unstable Portal, or unless it came out of someone's Web Spinner. Acidmaw, the abysmally bad minion, 7 mana, 4/2. Whenever another minion takes damage, destroy it. That card text is just dumb for a card that has these stats, and for this class it just does not make sense. It doesn't really fit the Hunter class at all. The only thing about this card that fits the Hunter class is the tag, the beast tag. This card is just horrible, but it does have one spectacular thing about it, which in my opinion it wins the award for being the #1 worst card in all of Grand Tournament. This is it. You're looking at it right here. This card is the worst card in Grand Tournament. You will rarely ever see this played. I mean, this is even worse than Demon Fuse. 7 mana 4/2. I am in shock that they printed this card. Those stats are so bad that even if you could get tremendous value out of, even if you had the dream scenario, which is to play this along with Dreadscale and get a full board wipe, with this card text, those stats for that mana cost have stolen all that tempo back, because you've spent all this mana to have something that can be removed now by even a 1-drop. This is pathetic, this card. And because of the reasons I just mentioned, you'll never see it play. It is a 1 out of 10 rating. I actually can't believe that a legendary for Hunter is a 1 out of 10 rating. Another disappointing legendary. Hunter now has 4 class legendaries, and all of them are pretty much, none of them are main staples, and this card is just really one of the worst legendaries in all of Hearthstone. I'm in shock that they printed it, actually. You will never use this card. It's a 1 out of 10. And overall, though, I think that the Hunter set from Grand Tournament was very disappointing. I think that most of those cards will not see play. I think that Control Hunter will not become a thing, because we've not gotten any closer to Control Hunter by any way of any of these cards. Any Control Hunter decks you see are going to be because of cards that already existed. So things like Goblin Shredder, you know, the High Mains, and you know, the Hound Masters. I don't see much of anything going on. I'm a little bit disappointed with what Hunter's got. I think the only thing they really got that was exciting was the Wrangler, and you know, I don't expect that most of these Hunter cards would really ever see play, and I wouldn't waste my dust crafting them if I had other cards that I wanted to craft. So thank you for watching the part 1 of the Grand Tournament review. All cards are released. Make sure to catch part 2, where I discuss the Mage and Paladin cards, and then the other parts after that. Thanks. Rinking out.